Hi, I'm Cyndi Lee.
And I'm Parr.
And this is Om Yoga Today. Our topic today is yoga and money. But before we get to that, don't forget to like and subscribe below. So yoga and money, subtitle being, can teaching be a full-time job? This is a pretty hot topic, I think.
Yeah.
And so we're bravely diving into it briefly. Bravely and briefly. I started my yoga studio, Om Yoga Center, that was in New York for 15 years. I started it in 1998. And at that time, there weren't a lot of yoga studios there. I mean, when I closed the studio, there were 300 studios in New York in 2012, but I think there were maybe 10 back then. It was, so it was a big deal. And I got interviewed a lot because it was at a time when yoga was really starting to pick up and there was a lot of interest and magazines were writing about it and people were curious about it. And I went on the Kathy and Regis show and the whole thing. And the same questions came up again and again because people didn't really know what was going on. Why were people doing this? What's it about? And one question that repeatedly came up was, you aren't running a nonprofit. Because many of the yoga studios, the few yoga studios, were more attached to ashrams. And maybe the class was donation-based or very inexpensive, and then you might even get free dinner afterwards, So it was a certain kind of model that was more of a church model. And I had a business. I had a real business. It was not a non-for-profit. It was actual, incorporated business. And we had a price for our classes, and we paid our teachers, and we paid our insurance, and we paid our rent. And I got asked by many media, journalists, isn't that a conflict? How can you be a yoga studio and a business? How does that work? I didn't really have a great answer for that. I was committed to that because I really wanted to be able to give as much yoga as possible to as many people as possible, high quality of yoga that would really be beneficial, and to pay teachers, a decent pay and give a good experience and have a nice clean studio with showers and all of that. That was kind of a new idea.
Right.
But the only answer I really came up with ever was, I don't think that every business person that is super successful is without a spiritual path.
Right.
And I don't think that having a spiritual path means that you can't do math. So, that was about as far as I got with my answer. And
Right.
I've been wondering about that ever since. And you've really, I wouldn't say attacked, you have faced this
Right.
for yourself. And I want to hear about that.
Right. So I think the biggest part that I'm resonating with right now is that it's all included, right? Like we're practicing including it all in our practice. And so, the two things that often get pushed away from spiritual practice are sexuality and money. And so one thing that I really wanted to take a look at is why? Why do we do that? Like those are two huge motivating factors in human life. Let's wrap them in and include them. And my studies into how to figure out my finances have been a huge part of my spiritual practice. Like I've learned more about myself, my lineage, my family, and how I engage with the world and other teachers, and also how I take myself seriously as a professional with this work. And it's been so interesting. A few things that might be kind of worth noting. Americans spent $16 billion on yoga in 2016. Wow. Yoga and yoga-related products.
Wow.
Right? So if you think about it, we're willing to spend $100 on a pair of yoga pants, but we dance around this idea of paying $20 for a class, right?
Right.
I think that calls for a little shift in thinking about where we actually place our value. Another fact that I like to bring up often is that if you're looking at the arc of teaching, a lot of teachers in older times, they had their basic needs taken care of. Right? They would be housed by the family, they would be given food, they would be given clothes. They didn't have to work. So they were able to draw from their ocean of knowledge and pass it on freely. If I went to my landlord in New York City and said, would you like to draw from my ocean of knowledge, that conversation would not end well. So we are, we're householders. We have to figure out how to have a practice and also be in the world. So I dove into that head on and I figured some things out.
Good.
So
let's hear it.
There's really 5-ish ways that you make income as a yoga teacher, right? Group classes, retreats, teacher training, private and corporate classes. And each of those have different kind of areas of mastery, but looking through all of the different ones, I really landed on building a private practice for me is the best way to make money as a yoga teacher. I looked at retreats and income generation. Corporate work can be great, but you really have to have an in. But private practice, you can build a business just stepping into the mind of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about it over the years. I've been teaching for 12, 13 years now, full time, and watched my practice go from 1 to 5 to, at its height, about 10 clients a week, many of them multiple times a week. And I sat with setting a rate that felt good in my body, that felt like I could go to them and have joy and excitement around giving that offering and feeling nurtured by the exchange.
Yeah.
So it was really just thinking about, this is service. Teaching is a service industry, and we have to. It's a himsa, right? If we can't actually nurture ourselves and pay our bills and keep the lights on, then how can we be of service to other people?
Yeah.
That was a big one for me.
I think that's so good. And I like that you said service industry, because I think that second word gets left out. And we could call it industry or business or a million different words, but it's not just service. It's not working for free, which often is what service is referring to, seva or service. And that's beautiful, and that's a different thing.
Right.
And it's also really, I think, so important that the way you described this process was you were very methodical about how you figured it out, but you also sat with yourself. You sat with how it feels. Like if I think, okay, those are really 5 good, arenas for teaching, and maybe I could make a lot of money teaching at privates, I get agitated because I don't like teaching privates. I'm not good at it. I just, already just thinking about it, I'm like, I don't want to teach privates, and that wouldn't be the answer for me.
Right.
So it has to be, and this is the practice, part of the practice, is it has to be both of these areas of just practicality and heart-mind, as you said before, heart-mind. And then you can do another Buddhist practice, which is wholehearted enthusiasm. It's like, I feel great about this. This is going to meet my needs. I can be genuine in my offering. I'm not going to try to cut the time short. I'm not going to feel a poverty mentality.
Right.
I'm not going to feel ripped off. I'm not going to have an attitude. It's a win-win for everybody, and it fulfills the motivation of being helpful to everybody.
Absolutely.
So I love that.
Yeah, and I did all of that work in response to seeing, like, the rhythm of teaching now for a lot of new teachers is, I'm teaching 25 classes a week. I'm getting paid $15 to $25 to $30, $40. And then by Friday night, I have nothing left in the well to pull from.
Right.
The offerings suffer. I don't actually practice, and that actually fosters resentment a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And then you burn out and eventually move on to something else.
And your teaching doesn't flourish.
Exactly. So it was like, there has to be a way to structure your financial life so that you can offer group classes in a way that is integrated and well-rested, and the well is full, right?
Yeah.
You can't draw from a well that's empty.
Right.
So getting your financial life in order, however you choose to do that, for me it was private practice, and now teacher training has been a very natural progression. And the group classes have been elevated because of that. I can teach from a place of joy and wanting to be there versus feeling like I have to teach one more to pay my rent.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody said to me right now, oh, I forgot to tell you, but you are supposed to teach a class for, a few thousand people in a large arena in 5 minutes. I'd be like, okay.
Let's go.
Let's do it. And if you said, you have to teach a private in 5 minutes, I'd be like, okay.
Right.
It's like I get fed from a group, a class. Mm-hmm. And so I can keep doing it. Mm-hmm. And so that's the part of the question is getting paid is a way of also nourishing yourself. So you have to match all of those. And it's a worthy contemplation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also one to revisit.
All the time.
Throughout your life, yeah.
And I think being an entrepreneur or stepping into that mindset encourages you to look at how things constantly change.
Yeah.
Right? Like now we're discussing so much like what's the sphere of online offerings in yoga practice and how can we reach more people that way?
Yeah.
And like thinking from the mind of a business person or a person who's integrated business and spirituality into their lives, like you see how things change and you're willing to try them.
Yeah.
And that's like such a beautiful thing to have and quite dharmic, right? It's like,
Totally.
Things are shifting.
Yeah.
How do I work with that?
Yeah, and how lucky we are that our field is ever evolving.
Right.
Yeah, I feel so happy about that. So, well, we wanted to give you a practice, a couple of ways to think about this, a couple of little practices. So right now, just take a seat. And you see how we're getting organized here. So we're really squaring off, if you will, and feeling balanced. We're not just taking a seat like whatever. We're sitting like this because we're going to tune in to our body, applying this mindfulness of body work. Okay, place one hand on your chest and one hand on your tummy and close your eyes. And when I say yoga and money, just notice what comes up in your body. You don't have to name it, just notice what comes up. Emotions, thoughts, physical feelings. And open your eyes.
Such an excellent jumping off point, right?
Yeah.
What's the physical response?
Right.
There's a lot there.
Right. Just really letting your body wake you up. Body is resource.
Body is resource.
So you have a practice too.
I have a practice. I'd love to give you all homework. And that's an exercise that was taught to me. Write a letter to money as a form of contemplative writing.
Yeah.
And you can leave it fairly open-ended, just write "Dear Money," and then put your pencil on the page and just see what comes up as you start to let it come out. And then step back for a moment and you can reread it later. But a lot of the times you'll learn things that were tucked in there from your parents, were tucked in from things you might have picked up in school. It can be really, really illuminating to notice our kind of like hidden behaviors or even money trauma that we need to get over until we can step into our own successful financial life.
Yeah. So there's a structure to doing this kind of writing practice. And what you do is decide ahead of time how long you want to do it. I think anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes is great. And you set your timer, and then you write "Dear Money," and you keep going. And the idea is never to let your hand stop. So it's much better if you do it with a pen or a pencil and not on your computer because it's more embodied a certain way. And if you go off topic, that's okay. If you can't think of anything to say, you can write blah, 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 blah until something else comes out. But you just keep your arm moving, keep the hand moving, keep the pen moving. And then when the alarm rings, you just pick it up. Even if you're in the middle of the most amazing thought that ever lived in the history of all humankind. You just stop. And then you go back and read it, as Hunt said, and see what's there. And you can think about that. It's a very interesting exercise to have in a little container like that. So we hope that is helpful.
Let us know how it goes.
Yeah.
Drop a comment down below if you tried the exercise. feel free to share and ask us any questions.
Yeah, and we're just so excited. This is the last episode of season 1 of Om Yoga Today. We are really happy to have this opportunity to share some of the things we've been thinking about and that we've been working with over the years, and that have been transmitted to us and through us and onward. And we'd love to hear if you have any questions, any requests, if you'd like to hear more.
Feel free to join our Facebook group, Om Yoga Today. We'll have more conversation, live streams, and more goodness to unpack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Excited.
So for now, we thank you and we will dedicate the merit. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings never be parted from freedom's true joy. May all beings dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.